There he is. I see him. Commissioner Johnson.
Present.
Thank you. All right, you have 4 of 5 committee members present. That is a quorum.
Terrific. Thank you so much. Do we do the teleconference next?
Well, typically you can go ahead and do the invocation and
Okay.
pledge, and then we'll do the teleconference.
Okay, I will go ahead and lead the invocation, and then Commissioner Burrell is going to lead us in the pledge. Please join me, if you wish, in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen.
Okay, we will now do the Pledge of Allegiance. Your veterans and your active military can give the hand and brow salute, and all others, your hand over your heart and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Burrell. Okay, so our conference is attached. Is that right, Jeff?
It is. The certificate of teleconference is attached, and at this point in time, it would. At this point in time, it would be appropriate if you wanted to go ahead and approve a motion to consider all the items on the agenda today.
All right.
So moved.
Second. Okay, so there's a motion on the floor. Please roll call vote.
Okay, Commissioner Young. And
Yes.
Commissioner Talaferro. Commissioner Burrell.
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez. Commissioner Chavez, I think I saw you thumbs up, but I didn't hear it. There you go. Perfect. And then Commissioner Johnson. Okay.
Hey, Jeff.
Yes, Commissioner Talaferro, we're just
Yeah, sorry about that. I just launched in here and I couldn't get it unmuted. Yes, please.
No problem. Thank you. I'm counting to 5 in support and none in opposition from
Okay,
that.
terrific.
And
Great.
that'll bring us to public comments, where citizens who wish to address the committee are asked to either fill out a comment card online, or they are able to call into the clerk's office. Would you like me to go ahead and give that phone number?
Yes, please.
Sure. That phone number is 318-226-6596. Again, that number is 318-226-6596. And I do know that we heard from at least one constituent earlier who is planning on calling in.
Great.
So do you want to give a couple of minutes for those calls to come in, and we'll connect them as they come in?
Let's
I have
wait.
a caller, Mr. Everson.
Oh, great.
Terrific.
Okay. Linda's got a caller now. If you'll go ahead and connect them.
Okay. Hello, Ms. Everett. You're now able to speak. You have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
We can't. We
We can't hear this.
Linda, could you ask her to pause and see if you can
Okay.
ask her to pause and then see if you can select that microphone, the external microphone that we put in there yesterday. It sounds like for some reason it's not picking that one up. Sounded like maybe that was just coming through the computer instead of the microphone that handles the phone.
Okay, I've got it. I've selected the microphone now. I'll have
Perfect.
her again.
Thank you very much. Yeah, sometimes it just defaults to the wrong thing. So thank you.
Is that better?
Much better.
Okay, yes, Miss Megan, please go ahead with your comment. I'll restart your time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Morning. My name is Megan Everett, and I'm a volunteer transport and foster coordinator for Parish Paws Animal Rescue. We formed in August of 2020 while I was rescue and foster coordinator for Caddo Parish Animal Services. It became evident on my end that there needed to be an organization set in place to raise awareness of the need for fosters and volunteers in our community, as well as an organization that was able to raise funding for animals that needed extensive medical care. In my time at Caddo, I met and formed relationships with over 25 rescue organizations willing to assist with rehoming our animals, as there were not enough local adopters for the monthly intake. Since the loosening of the straps on our community due to COVID, our intake numbers have skyrocketed monthly. The stats posted over the past 4 months show a dramatic increase totaling over 400 animals monthly, with over 100 being owner surrenders. Our other amazing rescues that are local are only able to help so much because many are only able to help so much because they actually do adopt locally with some adoptions out of state. Those lack in actual facilities, they are foster-based, which limits their capacity to help. We as a rescue community are struggling to keep our heads above water because every day all of us are asked to help between 5 to 10 animals a day. Our parish has to start within the community to stop the constant intake of unwanted animals, and it cannot be just for pit bulls. I can personally attest to the amount of pit bull types that come in, and while it is usually every 1 in 3, they are mixes. We have pit labs, pit shepherds, pit corgis. Not every single animal is going to fit the criteria listed as the proper name, American Pit Bull Terrier, deep-chested, blockhead, cropped ears, etc. Also, will there be DNA tests provided for those required to get their animals fixed? Education on animal welfare and animal care is the only way a spay and neuter ordinance is going to be successful, and that is what organizations like us step up and help with, of course. Robinson's Rescue has a waiting list of 3 months or more. They do have the SNP program. There are those that are not aware of it or they don't have rides to and from appointments. Licensing for those with animals would be a better start so that those who have them altered pay a small yearly fee, and those that choose not to have them fixed pay a breeder's license fee, and those funds can be accessible to CPAWs to assist with purchasing needed items. Would you be willing to bring something like a spay and neuter mobile clinic into our area? I spoke with Fido Fixers about a month ago, and they asked to bring in a clinic like that here, a salary and benefits for a veterinarian and a check per veterinarian plus medical supplies. Potential is there.
Hello, Miss Everett, your time has expired.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Everett. I think you made some good points, and we'll some of them we'll discuss in the agenda today. Jeff, are there any more calls?
Linda, do we have any more callers on the line right now?
No, sir.
I didn't see any others come in, Commissioner
Okay.
Young. So
Okay,
that'll
great.
Hey,
conclude
Commissioner John Paul?
Yes, Commissioner Taliaferro.
Yeah, would you inquire from Ms. Everett how much time she needs, if we can give her a little bit additional time for her to finish her statement?
Jeff, is she still on the line?
Let's see, Linda, do you still have Miss Everett on the line?
Sounded like she might have been.
Okay.
I think that she's no longer on the line.
All right, thank
Okay.
you.
We got some good bullet points though, some good questions. Okay, so should we move on with the agenda, Jeff?
Yeah, the next item is going to bring us to new business, where our first item today is 6.1, a presentation on mosquito control using drones. And I think
Right, Mr. Samuel, take it away, please.
Yes, good morning, commissioners. For some time, we have been entertaining the thought of using a UAS, unmanned aircraft system, in mosquito department. This particular payload system will allow us to save countless man hours by not continuing to cover the same areas over and over with high populations of mosquitoes we can't reach with our vehicles. So specifically speaking of rough terrain that would normally be impossible to traverse, after conducting extensive research, we finally located a company and CEO that meets our requirements. This company will also walk us through the requirements of the Federal Aviation Administration, FFA. So it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Bill Reynolds of Leading Edge Aerial Technologies.
Well, thank you for that nice introduction, and hello to everybody. My name is Bill Reynolds, and the company name is Leading Edge Aerial Technologies. Our expertise really is founded in mosquito control. We have a combined 100 years between several of the key stakeholders in the business in mosquito control, and have tremendous experience in aerial applications. I can talk with everybody and explain things. I have a short video I could show that I think is somewhat informative, and then I have a small PowerPoint presentation. What kind of time limit would you like me to stay within?
I think if you could present for about 15 minutes, that would be great.
Oh, okay. No, I shouldn't take that much.
But if you, okay, great, that would be fine.
Let's see now. I'm going to need to share my screen, I guess. So I'll hit share screen. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then I'll try to say, let's see if I can share the entire screen. Let's see. Whiteboard. Well, let's try this one first. The movie. At least it says movie. Let's see. Tell me if you are seeing a black screen.
Yes.
Okay, let me get back to that. That just jumped out of the way. Let's see if I can get out of there. Okay, let's just start this video and hopefully this will be helpful.
We have no sound, Mr. Chairman.
You don't have any sound?
I don't.
We can't hear anything. I didn't
No,
realize.
sir, there's no sound.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure why that would be. Let's see. Why would that be? Well, instead of wasting time, I will just give you the background of the video and the company again. So we originally came into the idea of unmanned aircraft in mosquito control because I just felt like the two disciplines would be very beneficial to each other. So we essentially built a very small unmanned aircraft that carried 1 gallon, and we called the Federal Aviation Administration and explained what we wanted to do. And they asked us, why are you calling us? Call the Ag Department. So long story short, we did 3 trials in across the country, and they did show extremely good results in the efficacy of mosquito larvae and pupae control. So we began to construct larger systems, and then the FAA kind of came back into the fold and said, hey, you can't fly those in the national airspace without authorization. And so we had a long learning curve of about 2 years, and essentially the FAA didn't have those regulations in place. Subsequently, do have that now. And what today's solution is we don't just ship you a drone in a box and then you figure out what to do. We assist you through the whole process from defining what your needs are, what aircraft might serve those needs the best or optimally. We help you with the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration's requirements in submitting a certificate of authorization to allow you to operate these in the national airspace. And then at the local level, at state level, you have to, in different states, you have to get certain license and requirements. Now, I think you already have those in your state, so I think you're covered there. And then once the system is shipped to you, we actually come out, help you uncrate the system, and we spend 3 days doing training as well as application side by side with you. So we're a complete turnkey provider. We don't just ship you an aircraft in a box. These systems, the Precision Vision 35X that you guys are interested in acquiring, are all manufactured and engineered and designed by Leading Edge in Charleston, South Carolina. We have a facility there, about 4,500 square feet. And we write all the onboard software, and we write all the software in the ground control station. So US based, if you need any help or support, as time goes on, we're here in the US, and then that's one of the things we excel at. You can buy other systems. Most of them are from China, and it usually ends up in a pretty big mess. And many folks that have bought those systems have subsequently purchased our system. They're operating in 22 states now, and that's growing. And we just opened up a dealership in Australia, so Australia is starting to use the systems for their mosquito control operations there. And I think that's a really quick summary of the organization and the product.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reynolds. I'd like to open up the floor to commissioners who have questions about this, and then I'll ask my questions.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Burrell.
I know this is something that technology that I saw down in Baton Rouge, I believe, at the Police Jury Association, and it brought to mind, I guess, growing up on a farm, we always had crop dusters. So that's the old form of aviation spraying. And now with the new drones, I can see the application, because case in point, where I live, I back up to a canal, a drainage canal, and when the sprayer comes back out on the street, it does not spray for mosquitoes behind my house, and there's nothing that can travel behind my house except a boat if the stream was navigable again. It is silted in, and if it was navigable, then possibly you could use a boat, but it's not navigable anymore. I'm challenging the city and the parish on cleaning that canal out, because it drains 2 neighborhoods, and this would be a perfect application to use, because when that canal dries up partially, it puddles and pools water, where I have a real problem with mosquitoes. I can't even let my grandkids go out there. So when West Nile came through, I even found dead birds back there. So I'm for a system of this sort. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Burrell. Commissioner Chavez, would you like to speak?
I do. Thank you, Chairman. This question is to Mr. Reynolds. Thanks for the presentation. The application, do you guys outfit that drone with the delivery system? Okay, you do that. And then what type of chemicals, or what type of whatever we're using, the product, is that available for what we currently have, or is that something we have to single source through your company?
So the payloads, there's 3 payload systems that go with our aircraft. One is a granule hopper that applies granule larvicides. The system has treated, probably in the last year and a half, a little over 15,000 acres using very common mosquito larvicides, Alticid, Vectobac, Vectolex, a lot of the products that you use in the granule form. And then there's a liquid payload system that will apply liquids such as Vectobac 12AS, Vectobac WDG, and other liquid larviciding compounds. And then there's a adulticiding kit, so that you can spray adult mosquitoes that are on wing You can't fly over populated areas yet. The FAA is not authorizing that yet, but where you have situations in areas in the backyards that have large properties, and there's a 2,000 acres that has just got tons of mosquitoes, you can do applications there. So the payloads are also made by us, software as well. So pretty much anything that is manufactured for use in mosquito control, the system can apply. I don't know any limitations at all.
Okay, thanks for that answer. That was one of my concerns is we already have a source for the product and we get a good price. So I want to make sure that we can continue to use our onboard product. Do we have to get 2 different drones, or can one drone outfit with 2 different applications?
One drone can be switched out between the 3 payload systems.
Okay. And then in regards to the FAA and the flight restrictions, typically we have our truck that goes down the city streets.
Okay.
We don't really get into spraying the backyards a lot. How would we go about navigating the area where we couldn't fly over civilian populated areas to get to those neighborhoods that we need to spray?
Yeah, so right now the FAA is restricting the systems that they can't fly over populated areas and do applications. And there is a movement towards that. I think we're probably 12 to 24 months away from that. Obviously, there is risk involved. If something were to catastrophically fail, the risk is there that it could come down on a house or the backyard. So they're currently mitigating that right now. So the way the FAA works for you as a public agency is the process is you submit a public declaration letter to the FAA and says we're Caddo Parish and we are a public agency and we will be using unmanned aircraft for our operations, and then they recognize you as a public agency and they give you authorization to go onto their website and create and submit what they call a certificate of authorization. And in that certificate of authorization submission, that's where you say, this is who we are. This is what we're going to be doing with unmanned aircraft. This is the locations we're going to be operating in. These are the aircraft that we're going to be used. And then they essentially award you a certificate of authorization that is good for 24 months. And then it's renewable really at about a click of a button towards the end of the 24 months. So that gives you authorization to use unmanned aircraft under what they call public aircraft operations. Since you're a public agency, you can operate these. And then there are limitations, and they spell out the limitation, not fly over populated areas, those types of things. So that's the FAA process. Now, how you go about, so many things like this are left for interpretation when it comes to the FAA. For example, not only do we manufacture and help agencies integrate these in their operations, but we also provide the contract services all over the country to provide applications in mosquito control and vineyards. I'm sorry, there's some background noise. Can you still hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So one of the limitations on our certificate is we cannot fly. We can't fly within 500 feet of structures and people. Unless the people are protected by a structure, and if we're within closer than 500 feet, the pilot deems it safe, then we can operate. So that's going to be similar to the way you guys are going to be operating. So take a truck ULV sprayer that's going down a truck in a neighborhood. You could probably fly through the interpretation of the rules down the center of the street, not over the houses. And you could deem it safe because you're operating in a safe and effective manner, and you're doing adult mosquito control under the authorization. And you're going to be more effective at getting the droplets into the areas that are in the backyards, because you're going to be releasing the droplet spectrum from, say, 75 feet or 100 feet instead of 6 feet on the ground. So it will be more efficacious. The other way to do it, and this is what I spent about 15 years of my career doing, is instead of trying to drive into the neighborhoods or fly in between, is you can fly outside of the neighborhoods and leverage the wind direction and speed and stack your passes so you're not flying over populated areas and the product drifts throughout the neighborhood further downwind. So there's a couple of very effective methods in performing that.
Is it, are you limited to Class E airspace?
Well, what they'll do in the COA is the airspace review committee with the FAA will look at the airspace that you're going to be operating in. So let's just say it's going to be the parish boundaries. You're not going to go outside the parish borders. And they will identify the airspace that you're going to be operating in or potentially operating in. So let's just say there's Class C there, Class D, control tower, for example. They will allow you to operate in that airspace, but request that you coordinate with the local ATC organization. Now, I haven't looked at your airspace, but I can certainly do a quick review of it now.
We have 3 towers. We have a military base. We have a regional and a downtown, and we have a north practice field in North Caddo. A lot of Class C airspace.
Okay.
And obviously up there in North Caddo, it's going to be able to utilize this platform. But down here by the military application by Barksdale, I think there's going to be lots of limitations. I don't even think the drone will fly over the restricted airspace.
Yes, so we have a very similar situation out in Nevada. Douglas County Mosquito Abatement District has a large air base there. I can't quite recall the name of it. And all they did is the FAA said you can coordinate with the local, military airspace, and they let them on the property and let them do larviciding quite frequently. I'm not saying that is the case for you guys. I don't know what that Air Force Base would say, but so far so good.
I love this application, Mr. Reynolds. So the only thing I would ask is if you could submit something to Mr. Samuel, look at our local area, look at the airspace, and
okay.
Actually draw a strip map on the areas that you do perceive that we could actually use this application before we get to the point of purchase. That way we don't buy a really cool application and realize that we're stuck just flying around Caddo Lake.
Yeah, so you want me to do an airspace review and then make my thoughts and comments? Okay, I certainly am happy to do that. I can't absolutely say that.
Not right now. I'm just at a later date.
Yeah, I certainly will, but I'll make my opinions based on historical results, like the one I just described at Douglas County. But that might not be the end result of the FAA's and final judgment. So absolutely, though, happy to review it.
Thanks, Mr. Reynolds, for your time. Chairman, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Chavez. Commissioner Burrell, would you like to speak again?
Yeah, I just want to follow up something that Commissioner Chavez was speaking of. It just brings to mind that if we're going to have to deliver this system in an area where we can't fly over populated spaces, then it is based on the size of it. Can we transport it to an area and then, release it?
Yeah, that is the normal best manager practice in operation parameters, where the unit fits in the back of a vehicle or in a small trailer, all the accessories that support it for battery support and charging. You're basically a portable airport, essentially. The unit takes off in a very small area and lands in a very small area. So you're essentially operating it remotely anyway. So that, yes, to answer your question.
Okay, and you don't have to have any particular equipment other than a trailer to get it there. There's no particular remote connections that you need. It's pretty much independent and modular.
Yes. Like a lot of our operations, we go out into remote areas, for example, and we're there for 10 hours treating 300 acres that day. So it's a self-contained configuration. You don't have to have a trailer. You can organize it with a truck, as an example. If you've got a cover for the truck, you don't want to get caught in the rain and get the material and everything wet. So a small trailer is very nice. You can carry the product out with you. You can carry the generator for charging the batteries. It's all self-contained. So yes, to answer your question.
Okay, but you do have to have a generator on site.
If you're going to be operating for 6-8 hours, yes, you're going to need a generator to recharge the batteries. The batteries essentially will last for 2 or 3 flights, and then you're going to take them off and then put them on the charger. And then in about 13 to 15 minutes, those batteries are going to be charged. So with 6 sets of batteries, you're cycling those batteries and you're never going to be waiting on batteries. You always run out of payload before you run out of batteries.
Now, if you're taking it out remotely, that generator is a separate It's just a separate unit that you carry with you on site.
Yes, we typically mount the generator on the tongue of the trailer, and then we run the power underneath the trailer and up into the trailer cab itself. And that way you're just literally plugging into outlets in the trailer, and with the chargers are fixed mounted in the trailer. And your normal time, the time that you arrive on site to when you're making applications, is between 11 and 15 minutes. That's the efficiency of it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Burrell. Those are good questions. I had a couple of questions that I just wanted to follow up. Some of them were raised before. So for Commissioner Burrell's example of the drainage area behind his house, is there a way we could get the drone along the path of that drainage area and then fly it up and down just the drainage area without being considered to be flying in a populated area, or would that necessarily be populated because it backs up to a house?
No, that you're not flying over populated areas, so that's a perfect application. That's correct.
Okay, so as long as we could get it into an unpopulated spot, we could then fly it around it there and follow all the rules and also get all the bugs.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yep. Great. And do we have, so since we're talking about spraying drainage areas, are any of the treatments, especially the larvicides, are any of those things that we need to be concerned about getting into our waterways and potentially into the ocean?
So I'm not sure all the larvicides you use, but the standard or typical larvicides are biological larvicides, like the BTI. Yeah, Imperium is a delticide, so there's no crop restrictions on Imperium, so navigable waterways, MPDS, no issues. Alticid, which is methoprene, another very accepted and labeled by US EPA for applications in mosquito control. So I don't think you're going to have any issues there. You've been using those for years.
Okay, thank you. And then I also wanted to know how we can measure the effectiveness.
Several ways. One way for the larviciding is if the technician has identified that there are mosquito larvae in a location, let's just say, make it as easy, a rice field, for example, or a flooded field, and they're doing pre-application dip counts, and they might find 13 mosquito larvae per dip. Then you make the application, and post fact come back and do the dips, and you might have one larvae. So that's how you can do a biological assessment.
Okay, great. And that's the kind of thing that our mosquito team is used to doing, I believe.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, this sounds good to me. Would it be impolite for me to ask how much the system costs?
I have submitted the budget somebody else might have that information.
I guess I didn't see that. But do we have that information, Mr. Samuel?
Yes, sir, Commissioner Young. I could get that to you. We're looking at about maybe 51,000.
Okay.
Of course, he has a later model, but we're going to stick with the 2021 Precision Vision PV35X. He has a later model, but it's still in development. So that's the price that he gave us last. So right, Bill, we can discuss that later.
Yeah. Hey, Commissioner Young.
Okay. Yes, Dr. Wilson.
Yes, sir. Can I comment, please, sir, on this?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, we see this, commissioners, as an additional tool within our tool bag to be able to respond to mosquito requests from our citizens in areas difficult to get to. As I recall, back in 2004, when the West Nile first became prominent, we had an aerial spraying of the whole parish. And we spent about $50,000 in chemical use on one application. And of course, I think the aircraft was on a training mission that we coordinated through the Air Force, a reserve unit. So we were able to do that. So, but we get a lot of requests for sporting events, parks, fields, and family reunion type events that our trucks just can't get to. That this will expand our capability and capacity to get those hard to reach areas. So we are all in favor of this, and we think we will gain more from this application and this technology that we currently have available to us now. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. I think I agree with you. I think it sounds like a great idea for getting an advantage over a pest that we have been dealing with for a very long time here. And I also want to thank you for sharing the history from 2004, which you've obviously been battling mosquitoes here a long time. I was in college back then. So
Yes, sir. The mosquito is just like the ants, been here from the beginning of time.
that's right. They'll be
going
here after us.
Yes, sir.
After us. Commissioner Burrell, would you like to speak again?
I just wanted to be sure that I understood Mr. Samuel say that we did our due diligence in terms of doing a cost analysis as well as a competitive bid on this situation.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Burrell, we did. We took about 3 months in this process when it was an idea. Dr. Wilson and I talked about it with the mosquito team. So, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, Commissioner Burrell.
Call Young?
Yes, Commissioner Taliaferro.
I can't get my hand to work. If I'd like to ask just a couple of questions, Mr. Reynolds, if I may. Mr. Reynolds, this is great. I know that probably our team, Mr. Samuels, that's leading, he is probably chomping at the bit to get this new acquisition, so to speak. I'm very impressed. Those of us that have had the experience of using drones, in the military, know its capabilities and know that there are places that usually were unreachable, or suddenly good target acquisitions, if I may say so myself, and
Okay.
that they're very target specific.
Yes.
One quick question is that obviously you can fly it manually. Does it use some kind of a geocoding or geofencing program as well, where you can just drop in coordinates and then actually does the mapping through the software?
Yes, there are 3 flight planning modes, actually 4, but you can draw a polygon on the ground control station over your maps, the satellite imagery maps, and the system will automatically put all the flight lines in. You can change the directions, you can change where the aircraft enters the treatment area and where it exits, and all the flight lines are created, and you literally push a button and everything is autonomous. The flight is autonomous, the spray switch is autonomous. The flight recording occurs, so you can upload to maps and see where you sprayed. You can manually fly it if you wanted to, just go down like a ditch line real quick and just clean up a ditch line if you want. You can do paths. So if you have sections of a ditch that run, say, 3,000 feet and only 2 locations within that ditch are breeding, you can turn the spray on and turn it off, when you've covered that area, and then skip an area in the ditch and then turn it back on, down the ditch line later. And then it also has the ability to do spot treatment. So if you have a field, let's say, that is non-contiguous water and it's spot flooded and there's breeding in all those spots, the unit can fly to that spot, spray for a certain number of seconds, and go to the next one and the next one. So there's a tremendous amount of stuff that you will be able to do with the system as it is. And you will also be able to enhance, the capabilities as the years march on in terms of doing LiDAR imagery, doing imagery, and making even more precise applications. And I'm happy to talk about that, but I don't want to consume everybody's time.
I understand. And so when you're talking about LiDAR quickly, this is going to be like LiDAR directed and similar to a radar directed. In other words, that communicates with a LiDAR gun or something like that to the equipment itself, and then you can physically direct it that way. I don't want to get technical into it. I'm just curious.
No, it's fascinating stuff. On board the aircraft is a radar for terrain following. If you're doing low-level applications of liquid, there's a LiDAR for obstruction avoidance out in front. But a separate LiDAR on a smaller aircraft, you can survey a large area and then strip all the vegetation off of that imagery from the LiDAR data and find all the low points. So that when you get a certain number of inches of rain, or if you're in a tidal area, which I know you're not, these certain areas will flood, we'll just go out and pre-treat and we'll be way ahead of the mosquitoes, hatching off, for example.
Perfect. And one quick question regarding the unit itself. Obviously with a 50,000 plus price tag, who does the warranty on that?
Yeah, we
Is
do.
Is that the company itself, or it's just one-stop shopping with you?
Everything is through us. Yeah, the support, the service.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah,
All right, thank you, my friend. Appreciate it. Thank you, Committee Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Taliaferro. Commissioner Johnson.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve this, send it to the full body for approval at the cost that they have negotiated.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Johnson, seconded by Commissioner Burrell and myself. And let's have a vote. Commissioner Johnson, would you like to speak further about it?
No, it seems like a good program to put in place. I was on the commission when West Nile was very prominent in this area, and we were spending money trying to get sprays, and the trucks was running past the time, just to make sure that we got the mist in the air to try to kill as many mosquitoes that we possibly could, and also putting out those pellets. And, you know, if we can move with technology and get to some of those areas that we couldn't get to at that point in time, and we can get to it now more frequently because we'll have our own drone, I think it's beneficial to us and not be reactive but proactive on these mosquitoes, because West Nile is not gone. It's just not as prevalent as it was because we got COVID-19 right now. So, but it could pop back up again. And so we could be prepared for it and have the material, just like for winter, having those blades for the snow and the ice on the roads. We need to do the same thing for the mosquitoes right now.
Great metaphor.
Terrific. All right. Would anyone else like to speak before we vote?
Looks like
Okay.
Commissioner Burrell has his hand up. Was that an old one?
No,
that might be residual.
That's an old hand.
Great.
Okay. All right, Mr. Clerk.
All right, Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Taliaferro,
Yes.
Commissioner Burrell,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez,
Yes.
and Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
That motion carries with 5 in support and none in opposition.
All right,
And that
terrific.
brings us to the next agenda item, which is going to be the discussion of mandatory spay neuter ordinance for pit bulls.
And before we move on to that, I just want to thank Mr. Reynolds again for his presentation and for all of his hard work, and for Mr. Samuels and Director Clark for learning all about this, and Dr. Wilson for leading our administration's push for better mosquito control. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for your time, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, so our next item is the pit mix, or the pit and pit mix spay neuter ordinance. I put this on the agenda because I was reading strategies that different municipalities have to deal with overpopulation of animals, especially pit bulls, after noticing, actually over years, it seems that our largest overpopulation inside animal services is pit bulls and pit mixes. And even though they do get adopted, they don't get adopted fast enough, and they are bred very quickly for all sorts of reasons. Some are cultural, some are accidental. I was surprised to learn, because Director Clark has educated me about breed-specific ordinances that are generally disfavored by the animal rights community and by animal management in general. But I was surprised to find that the group PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, specifically proposed a mandatory spay neuter rule for pit bulls and pit mixes because of their observation that this was the problem in America, particularly that we have so many pit bulls, and PETA claimed, which I thought was well phrased, that they were often bred to be abused, which is a terrible thing to think of, and it made me think perhaps a breed-specific rule about this would be the most targeted way to try to reduce the pet population that we have to house. So I just wanted to have a discussion about it. I have some questions that I want to brainstorm with our legal and animal services, but I'd like to hear what Director Clark has to say about it also.
Okay.
So anybody who wants to speak.
Okay. Good morning, commissioners. Good morning, everyone. Currently, right now, our intake with pit bulls and pit bull mixes is 1 in 3. However, they account for close to 60% of the dogs that have to be humanely euthanized here. So I definitely see that it's an overrepresented breed that we deal with. But as you just stated, it's throughout America. Texas has a lot of pit bulls, and we end up with lots of pit bulls and pit bull type dogs. I think some of the issues that would arise from a spay and neuter ordinance would be because it's breed specific. How would we pay for the testing? Who would do the testing? What labs are we using to confirm those tests? I know that in Denver, they had breed-specific legislation about pit bulls and pit bull type dogs, and those ended up being overturned here within this past year. I think there's a bigger discussion that needs to be had. I definitely think that some of the issues that I found with research and mandatory spay and neuter ordinances is that the community still needs access to the low-cost spay and neuter clinics. And since Robinson's Rescue is our local spay and neuter clinic, and they're NGO for the parish, that we definitely need to include them and see how they feel about the intake or the increase in surgeries and their volumes and things like that, and if they would need anything to be able to help a situation like this.
Okay, yes, I agree. That's a good point about including Robinsons. For the testing of the animals to determine if they're pit mixes, of course, we can identify by sight an animal that's probably a pit mix or a pure pit bull. And so I was wondering if we could. So, like, first of all, I think that like the an ordinance that's being enforced against a pit bull owner should have a warning schedule to begin with. So you know, I have an intact pit bull, and an ACO officer goes out and sees him. He can walk up to me and say, "Hey, I see you have an intact pit bull. That's not allowed anymore. Here's a warning and perhaps a voucher to go get your animal fixed at Robinson's Rescue." And you know, that warning could be, you know, it could be logged and then repeated once or twice before any penalty or some other alternative for enforcement is enforced. And then it occurred to me that we could test the animals if, but maybe only if, their genetic makeup as a pit bull is disputed by the owner. If the owner said, "No, this is just an ugly collie, like he just looks like a pit bull," like test it and prove he's got a pit bull in him, and then we could test those. But you know, a lot of times people are not going to dispute that. We could also say that, you know, we could also have a policy that if you appeal the identification as a pit bull and it turns out you're wrong and your dog is a pit bull and not a collie, that you would be required to pay for the test. And of course, it would be difficult to extract that payment from some individuals, but it could still be a policy that's waivable, perhaps. Do any of those ideas answer some concerns that you have, Director Clark?
Yes, those are good points. However, you said that they could be given a voucher, and would that voucher be for a private veterinarian or would that be to Robinsons? So again, if it's to Robinsons, then definitely we need to have a roundtable with management there, or maybe their board, to try and understand how the whole process will work from A to Z, so we can keep them in the loop and they know what's going on, because I'm unsure if they're going to need additional staffing for the amount of dogs that would be scheduled to have the surgeries.
Sure, that makes sense to me also. We should certainly include Robinson. Sorry, my dogs heard the man who runs the pound on my on my iPad and got kind of scared. Commissioner Johnson, would you like to speak?
Those are your pit bulls, aren't they?
No, they're shepherd dogs.
Yeah. Yes. I guess I would have a problem with doing a mandatory spay and neuter by breed, because there's other dogs that are of the same temperament, and you got some pit bulls that are not aggressive. I've met some that basically they'll walk up to you, they sniff on you, look on you, and they just lay right beside you. It's more about how that dog has been raised and trained, and it becomes an aggressive dog at that point, regardless of the breed. And I think that's what we got to look at, and not just the breed itself, but is the dog aggressive? Is it vicious dog? That's the important piece of it, not the breed itself, but how aggressive is the dog? I've had Rottweilers. I had some Rottweilers that won't even bark. But if you get into their zone or you attack or act like you're going to attack the owner, they will come after you, but no barking done whatsoever. And I had some that basically just want to sit there and look at you and play with you the whole time. So it depends on the temperament of the dog and not the breed, in my opinion. And I just don't want to point out that we're going after pit bulls because, they also got American bullies. Bullies that do the same thing. They just a little shorter, but they still will bite you. They still aggressive. You still got the Doberman pinchers. They'll do the same thing. You got German Shepherds that will bite you too. You got the Cane Corsos. They'll bite you. I mean, so they got plenty of dogs bred that will be aggressive to do that. But if the main thing is, are they aggressive, or they've been trained to be aggressive, or have they just been, just a breed? And I don't want to point out a certain breed, and then that dog is just a pet. That's all I have.
Can I say something?
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Yes, Mr. Samuel.
So basically, I see both sides, kind of like Commissioner Johnson was just alluding to. First of all, you got to think about the cost of these DNA tests. DNA tests, I was pricing them. You're going to run from $60 to $100, and the biggest problem is why are pit bulls so plentiful now? Because they're the choice breed of dog, of course. Some 20 years ago, if I was conducting some study on the CDC bite incidents, it was Dobermans and German Shepherds, Chows. That's because they were so plentiful. So now pit bulls are plentiful. So plentiful bites comes from plentiful breed. And the other thing, like Commissioner Johnson was alluding to, and I agree, the pit bull, the American pit bull, of course, the dog is recognized by UKC and the American Dog Breed Association, but not the American Kennel Club. So basically, it's mixed up with everything anyways. Its original ancestry is going to be the American Staffordshire Terrier, the Bull Mastiff, the American Bulldog, and Boxer. So what we think, the appearance of a blocky head, muscular body, that could be a Cane Corso, a Presa Canary, a Staffordshire Terrier, because there's so many similar dogs, a Canis Panther. I mean, I can go on for days, a Dogo Argentino, dogs that are similar that we could say, hey, that's a pit bull. But when you do a DNA test, it goes right back to the original ancestry. So it'll be difficult based on appearance. I think you'll be chasing your tail, no pun intended, by trying to genetically rule out what's not a pit bull and what is a pit bull. So those are the things we have to think about as well.
Thank you, Mr. Samuel. Yes, dog breeds do present a lot of gray areas at their edges, which makes it hard to do breed specific things. Director Clark.
Yes, sir. Okay, I just wanted to reiterate that I think what Commissioner Young is attempting to do is he came to the facility and he visited with me and he walked through the shelter himself. And he looked at all the dogs and he was, man, I have a lot of pit mixes here. And yes, sir, that's what we have, an abundance of those because they come in every month. And while some labs and shepherds and smaller breeds get out, now you're top heavy on pit bull pit mixes or dogs that look like pit bulls and pit bull mixes. If you were to go to our site right now and look at the animals that are available for adoption, most of them are going to appear to be pit mixes. So I don't think that Commissioner Young is trying to blame pit bulls for being aggressive or anything. I think what he's trying to do is say that this is the breed that we are left with at the facility. These account for over half of the dogs that are being humanely euthanized for one reason or another. So what can we do to help limit the intake of those types of dogs? I think that's what he's trying to do in essence.
Yeah. And of course, you know, Traz, you and I talked about it. That is his main cause. But I think the biggest thing, like I said, working from both sides, I just want everybody to understand that you're going to have some community citizens that, you know, that are actually good pet owners. And that's what Commissioner Johnson is saying. I see both sides. But we just got to, in my opinion, just look at this thing, you know, in a neutral aspect, because you're going to get some citizens that we may have won in this animal welfare walk that we're trying to take Caddo Parish to. I just don't want to get into business punishing someone that doesn't need to be punished. I mean, I can walk back there right now and I guarantee you out of 50 dogs, I'll see 30 that are pit bull, what we say are pit bull. So yeah, I see both sides. I just want us to think the full circle.
Sure, I appreciate that, Mr. Samuel and Mr. Clark. Commissioner Chavez, I want to make one response before I call on you. So Commissioner Johnson made some good points about breed-specific rules. The reason I thought this might be sort of a compromised position of just spaying and neutering pit mixes is when I've looked up other ways to deal with pit bulls in our area because of their population, my first thought was, well, you know, pit bulls are bad dogs, but a little bit of reading demonstrates that that's not the case. It depends, exactly as Commissioner Johnson says, on how they're raised. The spay and neuter rule for pit dogs is not intended to ban pit bulls the way other municipalities have done, often unsuccessfully, but just to have some method of reducing their population because they are so overpopulated in our area right now. And, you know, we normally don't think of spaying and neutering an animal as a punishment to anyone, but as just something that a responsible pet owner is likely to do. And so I still think that this ordinance in some form could like be negotiated to achieve some population reduction in that breed. And I also think that you know, having a genetic testing only by appeal from an owner might be a way of cutting down on the genetic testing that we have to do. So I still want to think about this, but I do appreciate the comments that were made that are contrary to breed-specific ordinances based on temperament, as opposed to based on a population, especially. And so, Commissioner Chavez.
Thank you, Chairman. Attorney Frazier, I wanted to get your take on the legal aspect. Can we implement something that's just addressing one breed type?
Commissioner, hypothetically we could, but many communities have not been successful with it. I think it would be challenged, and I'm not sure what the outcome of that challenge would be. I think some more information is needed, specifically with regard to they're 1 out of 3, which seems pretty high, but that of course is with, you know, just by judging what they are on site, not any kind of genetic testing. I think we need some breakdown as to specifically the dangers posed, like our dog bite cases, and that information before we would be able to successfully defend a breed-specific legislation. Because right now, what we have ordinances on the books that say if your animal comes in and you want it back, you have to have it spayed first. So we give vouchers for spay and neuter for those animals, unless someone is a breeder. So what you have is, it's kind of like the other side of that is you have breed-specific legislation, but you don't have responsible pet owners in the first place. And that is not going to change with the breed-specific legislation. It's kind of like, unless we're going to go door to door and seek out dogs that are of a certain type and, you know, go back and look and tell them of a certain time and that we're going to come back and check to see if they are spayed and neutered, we're kind of in the same position we are in now, even if we were to enact such legislation. Because the way we figure out now and enforce it is when we pick up stray dogs. And these people are not coming back to get the pit bulls that we are having to humanely euthanize, which indicates that they are not responsible pet owners in the first place.
Okay. I guess absent of us making a motion, could your team, your legal team, possibly get together something in about a month to report back to the Animal Services Committee of other areas that have implemented a similar scenario and that have had success rate, or if it went to court, what that appeals process looked like? I want to protect the parish from any litigation that could arise from that, and just that we have a roadmap of, because I think Director Samuel and Commissioner Young, I think they're on the right key of at least doing something, but in the doing something, I want to make sure that we fall within the realms of legality, so that we could look at how do we address this problem but still remain legal. I think we, like Commissioner Young said, we have to at least try something. And then once you craft something, then we can take it to our voters and ask them what they think about it. So obviously before we vote on it, we have a roadmap of what it's going to look like. I hear what you're saying about the going door to door. I would never advise on that. I do like what the lady, I believe her name was Miss Everett, that came on and mentioned us going into the neighborhoods and doing a mobile dog spay and neuter scenario, where I would love to see something like that, to where, as opposed to the voucher, because it seems like when we do the voucher, half the time people don't come back and we really don't have any way to check on that. But if we scheduled where our truck was going to go out there, and we could make this an education outreach to where when that truck was scheduled to go to that location and handle that dog that needs to be spayed or neutered, and also put out to the rest of the block, maybe a mailer, a free spay and neuter day on that block from that vehicle. I don't know how many you guys could do in a day from a vehicle, but I feel like, as John Paul Young said, the more we do, the better we're going to end up, not today, not in 6 months, but in a couple of years. So I'd like to see what your legal team can draft for us, you, in about a month. Dr. Wilson, you got a comment on that?
Yes, sir. I agree with the assessments that Director Clark and Assistant Director Samuel said. It will be difficult for breed specific, but let's say we make it mandatory and neuter for all animals. Anyone on this call will think that would fly?
I'm on board with that, Dr. Wilson. I'm just. Go ahead.
So I agree. We get a high number of pit bulls in our care, and Attorney Fraser said every animal that goes out is definitely spayed and neutered regardless of breed. And we've been aggressively spending a lot of money over the past 10 years on spay and neutering through Robinson Rescue, whose task it is to go into economically depressed areas, Commissioner Chavez, and provide the service, a mobile service. Because one time we were talking about getting a sport train bus and converting it to a mobile clinic. And we looked at all kinds of things in the past, but it took a lot of money and resources to make it happen. But we were looking primarily towards Robinson to do that because they were a nonprofit and that's what they were geared to do. But they got such a high volume now, they don't even have time to get into the communities because they have a lot of work every day at their facility. So we don't have the capacity to get into the community. So I agree, more need to be done. But I just think it's problematic for us when we start looking at breed specific and not address the other animals in the area that perhaps need the same service.
And I hear you, and it's definitely a situation, and I understand Commissioner Young.
I agree. I do too. I do too, sir. I get it. But I'm just saying, as a practical matter, you know, we're going to get a lot of kickback and complaints saying you just picking on that particular breed of dogs, and we got other ones running just as prominent in the community in terms of being strays. And what are you doing on those animals? You're not doing anything. You're not mandatory. So it need to be consistent policy across the board. And I know it's difficult to put that in place because I think New Orleans tried it and they failed miserably. They had a pretty high price tag on it. If you wanted your animal intact, I mean, you had to pay like a $500 fee. But you know, that didn't last. It kind of died on the vine.
This sounds like something where we need to go to a different community and figure out what worked somewhere else. So we can.
I take this course with best friends every Friday. It's an executive leadership course, and that discussion actually came up when was that, Travis? I talked to you, Mr. Clark.
Last Friday.
This same topic came up, and everybody that's on this animal services meeting right now have some great ideas, and it's awesome. But I think the biggest thing is how is it going to affect the community? Here in the shelter, yes, I would love to have a low amount of pit bull type dogs because they don't move. But just listening to all these different directors nationally, this always gets pretty messy, like Attorney Frazier said. I think the reason it gets messy is because there's no way to do it fairly.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? There isn't really an applicable way to do it fairly. You can do it, yeah. Hey, your dog look like a pit bull. You know, it looks like, you know, Petey from the Little Rascals. Whatever look we're looking for, it'll just cause a little bit of conflict. I would love for it to work, but I'm just looking at the entire picture.
I have a question, Travis and Kelvin. So the pit bulls that you have coming into the facility, are they coming in as bite dogs? Or are they coming in as strays?
They come in all sorts. They come in as seizures. You get some as bite dogs. You get some as abandonment cases, cruelty cases. You get them in as strays. You get them as owner surrenders. They come in every shape, fashion, and form. To date, as far as seized animals, this year for seized dogs, we have 466. Now that includes bites, abandonments, and things like that. Out of 466, 232 are listed as pit bulls. But when you look at the terrier mixes, that's like an additional 33. So no matter what capacity they come in as a stray, surrender or not, you're going to have more pit bulls than anything.
And so I guess my question though, other than being, I guess, a financial burden on us for housing them and not being able to move them because they have to be humanely euthanized, are they posing a danger to the community at large? And what specifically is the danger that they're posing to the community at large? And I mean more so than any other particular breed.
Well, Attorney Frazier, those are some awesome questions, and Travis can say the same thing. I think we get a lot of calls about an aggressive pit bull running at large. I would say 60% of those calls end up being a friendly dog that'll jump in the animal services truck and lick you to death. I think a lot of citizens look at the look and automatically they're terrified. I mean, we've had animals at large that were aggressive, that were labs, you know, but that's a great question. Like Mr. Clark said, they come in through the front door, they come in through the back, but I think everyone associate them as aggressive right off the bat anyways, Attorney Frazier.
Attorney Frazier, I also had a question that was similar to yours, and mine was if we have a justification for seizing dogs that are strays in general, and 50% say of the dogs that are strays are pit bulls, can that in itself be a public safety justification for a breed specific rule about not banning, not hurting pit bulls, but sterilizing them? So I just wanted to throw that out there. I would also, like Commissioner Chavez, like to see some case law about this from other jurisdictions to see how their ordinances hold up under a judge's scrutiny. So if you could, if you find some of that, please send it my way. And then it also occurred to me that for determining the number of pits in a shelter, without testing every one of them, we could probably randomize some testing, do some kind of, collect all the dogs that we think are pit bulls and test them randomly and see what proportion is correct. And we could do that over a couple of times and maybe come up with a pretty reliable guide. I'm not sure. I also, unlike some of us, don't really object to the idea of going through our neighborhoods and looking for pit bulls and checking to see if they are intact, visibly at least. I see intact pit bulls in my neighborhood a lot, and I can tell an intact pit bull. So those are things I still want to keep thinking about. I don't want to just drop this because we can't handle all the pit bulls we have. It also occurred to me that we could reconsider owner surrenders in general, or for pit bulls in particular. That's not really even legislation. I don't think it could be just an animal services policy that, if you have a pit bull, you can't drop it off here. Then we might end up chasing it down the street more. Who knows? So if nobody else has any comments about this, then I'll just thank our directors and Dr. Wilson and Attorney Frazier for continuing to think about this with an open mind, since it's an ongoing problem. And let's see. So Jeff, I think we might be ready to move on to our next item.
Okay, our next item is going to be discussion of the mandatory microchipping ordinance for dogs and cats.
Okay, so this is also a mandate.
Sir.
Yes, Dr. Wilson.
Yes, sir. I don't want to stop your flow there. I just want to comment that perhaps we can take a different approach on this particular item. I know you and I have been talking about we just ramp up our program to do more microchipping in our in-house, and to see how that goes. And then before we come back, we can come back and consider a mandate if that's not working out.
Right.
So what we propose to do is to do more community shipping initiatives, and like we currently do now, just do more of them. And then all the animals that we spay and neuter, that we ship all those animals going out the door too as well. So we can continue to encourage greater use of that technology. And then if that didn't work out to satisfactorily or not, we can come back with perhaps mandating something in the future.
That sounds good to me. Do we have a plan going for when we'll do a mobile?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We had one recently. We had to, because of the pandemic situation, it kind of slowed our efforts to do mass gatherings of people, because typically when we do the things, we have a long line of people lining up. So with the uptick in the Delta variants showing up in our community, we kind of took a little different approach to that, kind of slow roll it a little bit. But we are planning on going forward. We have plans to go forward. We have sufficient funds to do what we need to do for the rest of this year with respect to any programs that we want to do.
Okay. And how do we advertise those to the community so that they can come?
We use social media. We do. We put out on our Caddo Parish webpage that we have a free clinic that we would like to present to the community. And I think, is there anything else, Travis, other than do our Facebook and ACOs telling people about the service when they go out make contact?
Definitely. Our officers, when they make contact, they post flyers, even if they don't make contact. Usually when we're doing a clinic of that type, anytime they're on patrol, when they see an animal in a yard, it cannot be a violation going on. They'll still just post that notice as a, just to let them know about those types of programs that we have. We'll get with Miss Crystal, our communications manager. More than likely, we'll have some airtime on the news, and there may be some radio spots to help get that information out. But when you're talking about the animal community, they'll definitely spread the word, as you all know.
Great. So it occurred to me that radio spots might be the most effective way of spreading the word for mobile microchipping, because well, that it just might reach more people who weren't currently engaged with animal groups.
Yes.
Maybe some of the pet owners that we're thinking of maybe being marginally responsible.
Yes.
Not quite as informed. So
Yes.
I would love to hear it on the radio, and especially radio stations that are likely to be heard by the populations that we're trying to reach the most.
Yes, sir.
But Commissioner, usually the turnout was pretty high for this type of initiative that we have.
Okay, great. In that case, once COVID air is clear, I hope we can do them frequently and sort of try to keep down our population in custody that way.
Yes.
Definitely. With the microchipping again, we've taken in multiple dogs from Texas and different areas and things like that. Some from upwards of Arkansas. And what that microchip does is it does allow us to try to make contact with the owner. Sometimes the phone number change, sometimes the email addresses go unanswered and whatnot. But for the most part, okay, I can give you an example. Last week we had a dog came in named Buddy. He's microchipped to a lady who's now in Illinois. You know what I mean? But we were able to make contact with her, and she gave us backstory on the dog. She found the dog in Princeton, Louisiana, got the dog fixed, rehomed the dog, and now the dog is in here now as a stray. And attempting to get the dog back to her in Illinois, she felt that maybe Buddy wouldn't get along with her current dogs that she has. So now, but at least we have, made the rounds trying to figure out where did the dog come from, what's the backstory on the dog, and if she wants to verbally surrender via the phone, all she has to do is verify her information, and then we can go ahead and try to get that animal placed. So it won't sit here for 7 full days before, we can try to rehome the animal or figure out an option.
Great. So it's not going to work all the time, but it does take some animals out of our care.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
And at the cost, it's a good way to do that.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Great. Okay. Well, I support that a lot. Commissioner Taliaferro, do you want to speak?
Yeah, thanks. Just from my knowledge, Mr. Clark, speaking of the chips, are there chips that are just reprogrammable, such in the case that you just mentioned? I'm just not knowledgeable in that area. I guess I could have Googled it, but are chips programmable or reprogrammable, so where we can change the data or change the status of Buddy, for instance?
Okay, so for instance, if Buddy say he was transferred to a rescue group, when he's transferred in our system, it will update that information to 24 Pet Watch. So the ownership of a microchip is transferable, but if it goes through an animal services facility, animal control facility, and that animal is transferred with a legal document, or it is adopted with a legal document, it is upon the new owner to re-register the microchip. And there are different microchip companies. There are several, but Found Animals registers any microchip. It doesn't matter if it's a UKC chip, a Pet Watch chip, Home Again chip. They register all of them for free for a lifetime. So all they have to do is re-register the chip in their name. They may be required to upload adoption documents and whatnot to show that they did adopt the animal from said facility on this day.
Okay, thanks. And in our ordinance, I was kind of looking over and I really didn't see it. So educate me here. Do we have a mandatory chipping ordinance or a portion of our ordinance that says mandatory chipping?
Okay, so the mandatory chipping, it is listed when people reclaim their animals. It's saying that on the second impound, it can be chipped and can be spayed or neutered. Well, in the instance of animal services, if I impound the dog the first time and you work with me, and 3 weeks later you find the same dog 3 blocks away, you're not going to know it's the same dog unless it's chipped the first time. So any animal that leaves out of here has a microchip. If it's returned to owner or if it's adopted, it is microchip.
Okay, so if I'm an animal control officer and I get a call for a dog on the loose and I locate the dog and then I locate the owner, now our field ACOs don't have the ability to scan the chip. Is that correct?
No, they have scanners. Each officer has a scanner in their truck.
Okay, yeah, okay. I thought they did. I was just wanted clarification there. Okay, so I'm scanning the dog. The dog has not got a chip. Is it our responsibility to ensure that now we know the dog doesn't have a chip, and chances are the dog may get out again and we'll deal with it again. Do we have the authority to insist or call the owner on getting that dog chipped?
Well, did you say we picked up a dog and the dog was chipped?
No. If the dog isn't chipped because the ACO has already scanned the dog and now we know that that dog should be chipped, and that we, like you said, chances are we could get another call. We don't know the dog is the same dog, and this kind of prevents a little bit of a headache going down the road and makes the owner responsible immediately.
Yes, sir. So what we do is if the animal is brought in to animal services, when the owner redeems it, it is microchipped at that time. But I don't have officers microchip animals in the field for liability purposes.
Oh, no, I get that part. I'm just saying I'm the owner. And now that I know that, now that we know is Caddo Animal Services, we know that dog's not chipped, and we're going to insist that I, as the dog owner, get that dog chipped. In other words, here's your ticket. You got to bring it to a source, or you bring it down to us, or whenever. So now it's a mandatory chipping order.
Okay, well, if it was an ordinance that stated that, yes, but the only citations that we can issue him or her for at that time would be at large, failure to wear rabies tags, improper enclosure if the fence is worn or was left open, or things of that nature.
Okay, so I guess that answers my question. So we don't have a mandatory chipping ordinance or a portion of our ordinance that says
No.
the dog will be mandatory. Well, I can't even speak.
That's if it's impounded. If it's impounded, then yes. If it's impounded twice, yes.
Okay, so there has to be a history.
Yes.
Before we can demand that a dog be chipped, because we obviously have a history. But if Fido gets out once and we don't have a history, we're not going to make the owner chip Fido then.
No, sir, because we don't have it in the ordinance to do that. But
Right,
if it's impounded and it comes here, then when it leaves, it will be chipped.
So wouldn't it be prudent? I think, we're talking about the spay and neutering, and you got to pick your ditches that you're willing to die in. And wouldn't it be prudent for us as managers is to control the population and or the number of animals that we get in on a daily basis or a monthly basis that we just don't know where they belong? We know they're domesticated. We know that they belong to a home because of their behavior. Wouldn't it be better if we kind of spent our time developing a mandatory chipping ordinance that says, you know, I know we can, I don't want to infringe on anybody's freedom. If I want to chip, I can chip. If I don't, I don't. And I guess we're going about it the right way. I don't mean to belay this, that, you know, if your dog picks up, then we have no choice because we're involved. But otherwise, you know, as long as you're a responsible dog owner, then we're okay with that. Is that your position about that as well? As long as you're responsible, we're good with it. But once your dog gets out and we become involved, then, you know, then we can demand that you get your dog chipped.
Well, yes, if the animal has to be impounded, I definitely agree with it.
Yeah.
But there's still a profile made for that animal. There's still a case for
Right.
that animal. It's still, you know, the owner's information is still logged into the system. So
Yeah,
if we do go back to that residence, then we will see, oh, okay, well, yeah, we do have history, and this is the dog's second time being out. So I'm probably not gonna contact him via phone until I get to the animal shelter. Like, hey, we impounded Rocky. It was his second time being out. You're gonna have to come down here to redeem him or her, you know.
Yeah. Okay. And statistically, do we know on an average how many dogs that we believe have been, we just can't find their owners, and then they have to be adopted out or whatever? I mean,
well, I can tell you that our return to owner ratio is very low with our positive outcomes. It's
right.
under 10%. So if we have 3,000 positive outcomes for the year, you'll be lucky to have 300 return to owners.
And I think that's the crime right there, is that we can't return these dogs back to their rightful owners. And it may be the rightful owner doesn't want the dog anymore, like Betty's case. But it seems like we should be able to do something to, I guess, make people be more responsible, so we don't have going forward. Because it sounds like it's just a business. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. I know.
Hey, Commissioner.
Yeah, go ahead, Doctor.
Hey, Commissioner Telford Farrell, I think mandatory microchipping goes along with mandatory pet registration.
Yeah, I know. I get it.
You know, so it's a battle we've been engaged in for a long time, and would be great to get these all animals registered, so we won't even bring them to the animal service to be able to take them back home to the owner.
Right. Okay. Well.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. Thank you all. Appreciate it, Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Commissioner Taliaferro, and thank you for pointing out that sometimes mandates seem like the way to go to some people, and it's neat to see how that debate appears in other contexts too. So I think we might have run through all our comments on this topic for now. I think we're settled on just pushing forward with our mobile microchipping effort for now, but we can keep thinking about mandating more responsible behavior from our citizens with respect to microchips and dogs on a future date. And so I think we may be getting close to adjournment. Mr. Clerk, what's left on our agenda?
That is the adjourning is the only item remaining on our agenda. I will also mention that earlier during public comments, Commissioner Taliaferro did ask Ms. Everett if she was no longer on the line, but he asked about the idea of giving her a little bit more time. She did send us a written statement of the rest of her comments, and I will share that with the commissioners, and we'll put it in the minutes.
Thank you, Jeff.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Mr. Clark.
Yes, sir. Okay, I just wanted to mention that when Ms. Everett was speaking and she mentioned Robinson's Rescue, she mentioned a wait time. I'm not sure if that was a miscommunication or maybe she was trying to read fast because she was nervous, but their wait time is 2 to 3 weeks. It's not 3 months. So I just wanted to correct that.
Okay, terrific. Yes, Robinson's Rescue is located in District 4 and is a fantastic organization for the benefit of our public.
Yes, sir.
If we, it may be that we need to look at increasing their funding in some ways to try to deal with these issues without changing the law.
Yes, sir.
And so maybe we should at our next meeting try to have a representative from Robinson's come and speak to us about that in particular.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, the chair will make a motion to adjourn. Any seconds?
No, we just want to hang here for a little bit longer.
Second.
Okay, all right. Okay, meeting adjourned.
I've never heard that take so long.
Thank you all.
And I had to get off mute.
All right. Thanks, everyone.